Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news this Saturday morning. And I tell you what, we've got some big news coming out as player power prevails again and more leaks and more blames and more excuses come out of that toxic dressing room. We'll talk about that. It's coming from a good source, an interesting story about a split dressing room and a blame culture that really just does not... I mean, some people might read these quotes and go, you know what, I sort of understand it. This is Man United players making excuses for losing to Bournemouth and Forest because there's a takeover happening. It's absolutely ridiculous. Also, some breaking news in the last few minutes about Timo Werner will not be joining Manchester United. He'll be joining Spurs. Some people are happy about this. I think this is bad news. I think this is this amazing... naivety in our fan base that they think we're going to go and buy Osman. Like, Werner was probably the best we were going to get, and we're not going to get him. Just the same as João Felix last year going to Chelsea and Gakpo going to Liverpool. We're going to end up doing a Weghorst deal. That's what we're going to end up doing because we can't even get the deals that people don't want to happen. Do you feel like now we will get Chopper Moateng, says Jar Jar Binks? Well, exactly. This is probably where we could end up going. Exactly. We'll talk about that as well. We've also got some stuff on Varane and Sancho. But let's start off with the thing I want to start off with. We'll talk about Werner in a minute. He is on the verge of joining Spurs on a 6-month loan deal. The deal is very hot, and that's coming in from German reports. So expect that to happen probably today. We'll talk about the ramifications about that in a moment, but let's hit the headline story. This is coming in via Andy Mitten, who's a very, well-sourced journalist, I suppose, formerly a fanzine founder and big Manchester United fan, very respected, and wouldn't write stuff like this unless he felt that he had it from good places. And actually, it says there, the understanding from multiple sources is that many players have lost belief and confidence. However, reports of Ten Hag losing the dressing room are not accurate. Some are right behind him, others are not, and he also has doubts about some players. So that is basically, when I read that really comes from multiple sources, i.e. people close to players, and also reflects badly on that's bad. That's really bad. And in the context of multiple sources saying that Man United players have lost belief and confidence, what they're saying is that those players have got issues with the way the club has been run, and several players didn't think that the strategic review going on in the background has helped. I mean, I think this is weak mentality. I mean, I just don't know what sort of society we live in now. You miss a chance and you're being bullied. Somebody says you're crap, and it's a reason to for everyone to start a whip round, and it's just weak. I don't want this mentality at Manchester United. It's terrifying. There's a strategic review going in the background, and that's why we lost to Bournemouth. Oh, we need everything right. We need a bedtime story. Oh, we need some hot chocolate. Oh, I want a milkshake and a biscuit. Oh, I want everyone to tell me how great I am. I can't fucking believe this. I watched the Man United side go to Galatasaray and get pelted by the police. And I'm not talking about the one with Sting in it. And they still won the league that year. The mentality of these players is off the charts. Oh, there's a strategic review happening. What do they expect? We've lost in the tunnel. What the fuck have we got at this football club? Seriously, I think sometimes you've got to cut through the crap. What bunch of crybabies have we recruited at this football club? Weak mentality, blame shifters. Get them down IKEA, get a job lot of mirrors and put them up in the dressing room because they need to look at themselves. I've said this before. About some of these players. If there is an excuse, they've got one. I wouldn't be surprised if we lose another home game to Spurs next week and the players come out and say, the chips were cold. There was no ketchup. What do you expect? The kit wasn't warm. I like it in the tumble dryer the minute before I go out to keep me warm when I go out. It was room temperature. It's just... You wouldn't be surprised, though. You laugh, but you wouldn't be surprised. These players are not confident and they've lost their belief because there's a strategic review taking place. Oh my God. You're paid to do a job. I've worked in 3 jobs where for 6 months I didn't know whether I was going to have a job, and no one else did either. You know, and they think footballers have it hard. I pity the mentality of some of these players to be associated with an article like that. Thank God we haven't got any names. But the fact that that's sourced by Andy Mitten from multiple sources means that either Andy Mitten's a liar, which I don't think he is, or players are putting that out there that we want sympathy because we're part of... So you're on 150k a week and you want fans to feel sorry for you because you're having a strategic review that needs to happen. We've all been there. I've been there. I've worked in jobs where the business above me is not doing that well, and it needs to, you know, it needs a review. It needs to look at ways to save costs, which means redundancies. I've been there. And the fact that footballers at Man United are saying we're losing belief and confidence because there's a strategic review. Get rid of this shit, Sir Jim. Get rid of it. Can you imagine Roy Keane or Paul Scholes or Eric Cantona or, you know, Wayne Rooney? Oh, I didn't play. We lost to Bournemouth because we're worried about what's going on above. What, you know? I can't be tracking back. I can't be picking up the runners in the box when I'm thinking about Sir Jim. What? I can't cross the ball into Hoyland when I'm thinking about whether, you know, whether we're going to rebuild the stadium or not. Oh, God, you know, it's incredible. It's incredible. And this is mentality. This is a mentality problem. It is a weak mentality problem. And it also comes back to what we've always known. If they've got an opportunity to blame something, they'll blame something. And that's why they're inconsistent. And that's why we can beat Aston Villa and play really well and turn up to Forest and be absolutely unrecognisable. There is a mentality problem at that football club. And stuff like this just confirms it. It's a mentality problem from the hierarchy in that dressing room. And it's not all players. You know, it even says there, reports of Ten Hag losing the dressing room are not accurate. Some are right behind him. Others are not. And, you know, we're not naming names here. We don't need to. You can give me a comments if you want to. But I'm not going to start naming names unless they come up in the chat. But the bottom line is, Rasmus is behind the manager. Martinez is behind the manager. You know, I can name some players that are behind the manager. I can't name the players that aren't behind the manager because there might be a few surprises in there. I've got a few ideas. But the bottom line is, it matters not. Naming the names, that's not my job and it's not your job. So Jim Radcliffe knows the fucking names. Get rid of them. And if he doesn't get rid of them, he's going to fail. And if he fails, he will fail with the criticism of us. Because we've been dealing with this, Sir Jim, for fucking years. This blame culture, weak mentality has been going on for years. Now get rid of them or you're part of the problem. It's as simple as that. You're the owner of Man United or you're the owner of the football side of things. You're not getting any excuses. You've got into bed with the Glazers. You're on trial. You get rid of these players and prove that you're the man to take Man United forward, or you stick with these players and prove you're just another Glazer puppet. And that's the bottom line, isn't it? I can't get rid of these players. You can't get rid of these players. We know they're there. We know they're a problem. It's his job to get them out. And if he doesn't get them out, he's weak. It's as simple as that. What's more concerning is the leadership has allowed player power to rise this much. So Jim Radcliffe changes are sorely needed more than ever, says Akash. Akash is absolutely spot on. It is player power. And the fact that we can get these sort of stories coming out. And these are leaks. You know what? You know what? These are leaks. That's why we've got more leaks on the thumbnail. Because I want it to be very, very blunt. These are dressing room leaks post Sir Jim being announced. Somebody said last week in the chat, I bet the leaks will stop now because everyone will be shitting themselves. They don't care who's in charge. If I was Sir Jim Radcliffe this morning, I would be speaking to Andy Mitten, I would be speaking to The Athletic, and I would be speaking to people in the club, and I'd want to know who these people are. I want to know who. I want an investigation. I want to know who they are. They can do it last month under the Glazers, but I'm in charge now. We're trying to spin a positive here, and articles like that are coming out. I want to know who they are, and I want them out of this football club because I didn't expect them to come out so quickly, and they're coming from a credible source. So, you know, it's not coming from the back of the sun. It's coming from Andy Mitten in The Athletic. These are leaks, and they're not positive leaks. You know, you can find bits of positive in there. You know, some players are behind the manager, but some aren't. And players are using bad results as an excuse because there's a strategic review taking place. Get stuffed. Everton had a 10-point deduction and went on a winning streak in the Premier League. I mean, this is what I mean. So you're telling me, I'm telling you, Everton players have got a stronger mentality than Man United because Everton players can deal with a 10-point deduction that could have got them relegated and have won loads of games. It's disgusting. Daniel, welcome to the Members Club. Your impression of the players are classic, says Mustafa. Might be more of that. Jonathan says Mourinho's already outed the weak mentality players. Well, yeah, I suppose you're right. Hi, Mark. Maybe we need to shout at them before and at halftime every game if it will get us wins like the one against Villa, says Ricky. And I agree with Akash, though. What's more concerning is that the leadership have allowed player power to rise this much. Zero Connection says, who do you think's in a more precarious position, Ten Hag or Murta? Definitely Murta. AJ says, I've got a sinking feeling we might go for Dybala. We'll talk about that in a moment as well. So lots of people getting involved this morning, but that's the sort of headline we're discussing here, that players are leaking out already excuses. You know what? The thing is, though, if you're Andy Mitten, you're writing that and you're going, yes, this is going to really pop off. And it has, and it's well written and fair play to him. He's respected. But what makes me laugh is the players or people close to the players actually think the fans are going to go, yeah, let's get behind the players. It's been hard for them the last 6 months, earning millions of pounds a week and, having to deal with a strategic review. That's why we've lost to Brighton. That's why we've lost to Palace and Bournemouth and Forest. It's because of the review. It's not the players' fault. They're not the ones who go out on the pitch wearing the shirt and it's all about them. It's not their fault they're losing games on the football pitch. It's because of the strategic review. Oh, it just makes me sick. But in fairness, what do we expect? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. These are players that lost under Mourinho, lost under Ollie, lost under Rangnick, are losing under Ten Hag. It's been going on for a very long time. I would quite simply say this. I wouldn't really be blaming any player that's come to United in the last 12 months. They may become part of the problem. They may be influenced by the problem. But I think what we're looking at here is, if I'm Sir David Brailsford, I'm looking at the Mourinho era to now, and anybody that was here when, basically from Rangnick back to Mourinho, and any player that's part of that has to be looked at, because this is a hierarchy issue. I was told this about 6 months ago. The problem in that dressing room is the influencers in that dressing room have all been there a while, and they're all toxic because they're influenced by failure, and some of those players don't want to be failures, but they're influenced by it, and they're the hierarchy. When you walk into that Man United dressing room, Rasmus Højlund's not in charge, Garnacho's not in charge, Mainoo's not in charge. The people who are in charge in that dressing room are the people that have been here through the failure, and they're used to losing and they're used to blaming. Not all of them. I personally don't think, and I'm speaking completely opinionated here, I personally don't think the likes of Harry Maguire or Scott McTominay are toxic, negative players. I think they're just players that really want to give everything but aren't good enough. That's something very, very different. I think the toxic players are the players that are good enough but have the weak mentality and blame shift. Egos, maybe. I don't know. But it's well known that these problems exist, and if they don't remove these problems, I don't think these players can remove these mentalities. I think we'll see a bounce. I do think we'll see a bounce. What we do know about these players is that they can bounce for 3 or 4 months, but they can't bounce for a full season. So I think we might get a bounce till the end of the season. And what terrifies me as well, is some of these problem players will suddenly start playing well till the end of the season, and then they'll get another year. And that's the problem. You've got to be very ruthless if you're Sir Jim Ratcliffe and go, you've got to know your club. Look, Sir Jim Ratcliffe should know this. If he's a fan of Manchester United, he should know. I've wrote a list before I came on the show, right? And I wrote a list of players I'm binning in the summer. It's controversial, and it's not for public consumption because it's not fair. Get me down the pub, I might tell you. But I've got a list of players that I'm getting rid of. And it doesn't matter how many goals they score between now and the end of the season. It doesn't matter how many clean sheets we get between now and the end of the season. And it doesn't matter how many man of the matches they get. The reason I'm getting rid of them is because I've got 2, 3, 4 seasons of them being inconsistent. And I don't trust them even if they play well for the next 5 months, I know they'll be back to being inconsistent next season. So they've got to go. But to do that, you've got to know the club. So, I mean, surely these are things that Sir Jim knows as a fan of the club. Gary, welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much. The key problem is not off-field issues or mentality. Our midfielders are very limited in controlling the play, and Bruno is the fundamental problem. I completely disagree with you, Anil. You've just basically taken 5 years of problems, which are multiple problems, and tried to pin it on Bruno Fernandes. Absolute nonsense. I don't understand why we don't... I mean, but you know, I'll call that out as nonsense because this is where we go wrong. We try and individualise Man United's failure over the last decade, and it's not one thing. I don't understand why we don't do more appearance-based contracts. These big players must back themselves to play and perform, so it shouldn't be a problem, says Hans. Melody Malik, welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much as well. So there is more to bring in here. Obviously, we're going to move that off the screen. It's been there for a little bit of a while, but let me just add a little bit more. There is a little bit more to that. Apparently, Ten Hag himself has doubts about some players, and some have proved incapable of following his specific instructions on the field. I think this is from the same article, and I think this is really, really interesting because I actually think this is true. I think that there is an issue with the way our players perform technically, and we can dwell on it and we can talk about it, but the cold, harsh fact is I think there's a lot of truth in this article, and I also think there's a lot of truth about the technical side of it because we saw it with Rangnick and we've seen it with Ten Hag. These players cannot play whatever style of football it is you want to play. High press, high possession, they can't do it. Technically, they just can't do it, and it's been proven. And this is why when people say, sack Ten Hag and give the job to De Zerbi, you know, why change a manager to bring another possession pressing style of football? We don't have the players. They cannot do it. We watch it week in, week out. You can't sit there and say Scott McTominay's a hide and seek champion, or Fred's first touch is like a trampoline, or, you know, Marcus Rashford won't cross, or Anthony won't cross, or, you know, Bruno just wants to play the killer pass all the time. And there's multiple other examples of players, but none of those things I've just mentioned suit a possession-based football side. And we don't press particularly well. I think the pressing is better, but we haven't got players who are good at it or want to do it. So we haven't got players who want to play patient possession-based football, and we haven't got players who really want to press. They'll have a go, but they can't do it week in, week out. They can't even do it for 90 minutes. So there is a truth there. The makeup of the squad does not suit. It wouldn't suit Ange. It wouldn't suit De Zerbi. It wouldn't suit Pep. It wouldn't suit Klopp. It wouldn't suit Arteta. It wouldn't suit Eddie Howe. And that's the way I look at it. I look at it wouldn't suit Emery. I look at the top 6, 7 managers in the Premier League, and they wouldn't like the squad we've got because the players just don't suit it. They suit a style of football that Ollie played that no one else plays, which is sit back and counter. You know, have a breather and then counter. We don't want the ball. We don't want to be on the ball. We don't want to be thinking about what we're doing with the ball. We want to get the ball, kick it long, or look for a killer pass, score, defend, counter-attack. That's what they're set up to do. Anyway, let me tell you a little bit more about what has been said, because there is more as well. A leading agent, this is from the same article. So a leading agent has said that Erik Ten Hag this is from the same article, Andy Mitten. Erik Ten Hag totally misjudged the qualities needed to play in the Premier League. I rate him as a coach, but if he had an experienced sport director alongside him like he had with Mark Overmars, then he wouldn't need to worry so much about the recruitment side of things. You've got Pep and Tixi at City, at Man United, you've got Eric and Watt. I mean, look, slow sports news. Slow sports news, but sometimes slow sports news is never bad as a reminder. What that agent is basically saying is that Erik Ten Hag doesn't have the experience to run Manchester United on his own from a transfer point of view. You can be critical of Erik Ten Hag here, and of course many of you will be, but it's the same thing that went on with Jose. It's the same thing that happened with Ollie. It's the same thing that happened with Rangnick. Ralph Rangnick recommended Vardy. I mean, you're going to tell me the list. Off the top of my head, Ralph Rangnick recommended Enzo Fernandez, Akanji, Alvarez, Nunez, Vardiel, and Kunku, all before they made big moves. I mean, Enzo Fernandez and Alvarez was when they were in Argentina. And the club said no to all of them. So this is nothing new. the manager at Man United, Mourinho said it himself, I'm it. I'm the manager, I'm the CEO, I'm the director of football. I'm the only guy who speaks to the press. I'm the only guy who talks about Man United, and I'm the manager as well. This has never been in place, and it has to be in place. So, look, a leading agent can say it. You know, Jim who works down the counter at the local pub could say it. It doesn't matter. Like, the structure at Man United's a joke, and until the structure's in place, it will always be a problem. The only Premier League managers that suit our squad are Deitch or Thomas Frank, says Patrick. You know what, Patrick, I agree. I actually agree. If you want to get the best out of this squad, Sean Deitch or Thomas Frank are probably absolutely perfect. If you know, you know. Clip it up. The best managers in the Premier League to suit this Man United squad, if you want to sack Ten Hag, are Thomas Frank and Sean Deitch. And if you know what style of manager there are, you know what I mean. Thomas Frank would be perfect for this squad. He operates off 30 to 40% possession. People don't like it, though. What are you talking about? We can't get Thomas Frank. No, we can't get Thomas Frank. But what I'm telling you is, the style of players that we've accumulated at United suit counter-attacking football. So Thomas Frank would be a very good coach to suit these players, which is exactly the problem. People want to replace Ten Hag with De Zerbi or Emery or Hansi Flick or whoever else. We haven't got the players for those types of coaches. And when people wake up and smell the coffee, they'll realise that. You can't polish a turd. These players cannot play possession-based football, high pressing. They can't do it. They don't have the technical ability to do it. These players suit Brentford. Put Marcus Rashford up front for Brentford, I think he'd score the same amount of goals as Ivan Toney. Put Bruno Fernandes in an Everton side, I think he'd get loads and loads of assists. But they're better than that. They should be able to play a possession-based style of football. And why can't they do it? Why can't they do it? I don't know. Answers on a postcard. Big Fat Sam's inbound, says Elvon. There's no need for the fat thing. Obi, welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much. And Dan says, Tottenham are in for Werner. What are your thoughts? We're going to talk about that in a moment, Dan, but I'm just working through this, what I think is more important stuff. And also from the same article, just in relation to Sir David Brailsford and Sir Jim Radcliffe, they made a positive impression when they met the staff this week. Brailsford wants to look under the bonnet at the components that make up his remit on the football side, and there are heads of department who are absolutely fine with that. The strategic review has led to significant uncertainty among staff and has now become unease over what Ineos will do and what powers they will have. This has proved a distraction for some staff and more subliminally for players, undermining the authority of both Ten Hag and John Murtough. Look, I'm sorry. I'm absolutely sorry to say this again, but if this strategic review is unsettling players and is the reason that we are losing games, they can fuck off. I've never heard such shit in all my life. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. If Halfords, the car repair shop, are talking about a merger with QuickFit, and I take my car in to have the new exhaust pipe put in, and they forgot to put the screws in, and I complain, and they go, oh, it's because I'm worried about this merger. Fuck off. You know, you're paid a lot of money to do something most of us would do for free. And you're moaning about things that don't concern you and using it as an excuse for losing to Bournemouth at home. Get out of this football club with your weak mentality and go and play for a club that accommodates that sort of thing. I'm not in any shape or form ever accepting that the uncertainty around the ownership of Manchester United is a reason to lose games of football. If anything, and I think of some of the players that played for this club, I think about the 94 side, I think about the 99 side, I think about the 08 side and many other sides. They would not lose games because there is something going on above. They wouldn't. They are 11 footballers, more these days, who are focused on winning a game of football against another team. You walk out onto the pitch against Arsenal, you're playing Arsenal. You're in a battle against Arsenal. You're not thinking, oh, we might lose today because of what's happening with Ineos. It's disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. And you know what? These are the sort of conversations we want to have, because there is always going to be a conversation about PR spin. Of course there is. Oh, we're going to take United back to the top. But I said this last night. I want reality. I want change. There are lots of problems at this football club and they need to be resolved. And in a way, this story today makes me quite happy, because it exposes that even though Ineos are coming in with all this, you know, PR positivity, people are still leaking and you're here. And this is the enormity of the problem that you've got. And you need to solve these problems ASAP. Because if you don't, then this player power thing will continue to exist. And the fact that they're using you coming in as a reason to, lose games of football is disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. As I said, they should be out on the pitch thinking about winning games against the opposition. If they're thinking about other things, it shows you how self-centered they are. And here we go. If you're in the dressing room at Man United and you're concerned about what Ineos are going to do, what does that say about you? Are you worried that actually you're a problem and you might get sold? Are you worried about your contract? Are you worried about bonuses? I mean, they're all very selfish problems. A player should not be worried about Ineos coming in and taking over the footballing side. They should be thinking, well, if I deliver week in, week out consistently, it won't matter. It doesn't matter who's in charge. If I'm good enough, I'll be here. I don't think Roy Keane would ever been worried about this they wouldn't care because they know they're a Man United player. The problem is we've got a lot of jokers in our squad. The other problem is I can't individualise this because, I know certain players aren't involved and I suspect maybe we can all start guessing who is involved. But the bottom line is it's not our job to do that. There might be some players who get told about this or even watching this going, oh, he's a prick talking about that. Well, that's because I'm talking about you then, isn't it? But only you know that. I've not named you. No one's going to name you because we don't know, but we know you exist. And we know that some of you aren't the problem as well. But that's not my job. I'd happily come in and do the job, but I'm not the owner of Man United. I'm not Ineos. They've got to go and get these players out. Have they got the balls to do it? I'm not convinced. I think some of these players are so powerful, they will still be here in 2-3 years' time. I'm absolutely scared to say that, but I don't think they're going to go. I don't think we'll get rid of them. And this is why I and many others are not totally convinced that this is going to work, because I don't think that Ineos have got the power to do it. I don't think they have, because I know to get rid of a player, let's say Exhibit A, one of these players that are very powerful, you're going to have to write off millions of pounds to get rid of them. And they know that. They're more powerful than Sir Jim. They won't be, I don't believe for 1 minute they will be forced out of this football club. I really don't. And if I'm proved wrong, then you know what? I'll be there saying that we're heading in the right direction. But I don't think these players will be forced out of this football club. I think they'll be have an arm around their shoulder and say, please, come on, let's work a little bit harder. How do we make you happier? How do we make you play better? And you've lost straight away. If you've got a problem in your squad or in your business, and you go up to them and say, I know you're a problem, but how do I make you not be a problem? What can I give you to make you work harder? We're Manchester United. They shouldn't be here. Ineos must have backed Erik ten Hag until the end of the season. Why else would players blame ownership change for inconsistency? Before it was Erik ten Hag training them too hard, says Patrick. Jonathan says all the leaks point to Rashford. Well, I disagree with that. I think it's very unfair to individualise it. Very unfair to individualise it. And it should never be individualised because multiple sources is what Andy Mitten's saying. I'm certainly aware of multiple sources when it was Ranić. So, I'd rather win nothing for 3 or 4 years, finishing 15th or 16th, as long as we get a proper clear out, says Patrick. And that's all about communication. They should come out and say that as well if they're going to do that. Look at Everton players. They literally had a 10-point deduction and they performed well, says Rahul. And Fabrizio's just confirmed that Spurs are close to signing Werner on loan. United are just incompetent, man. This is just the deal they should do this January. And Akash says TalkSport are asking if Ashworth is best in class. I doubt they know very much about Ashworth, to be honest, until he was linked to us. But look, Obi Morgan, welcome to the Members Club. Let's move on to this story then. This is a breaking story this morning. It only sort of hit about 20 minutes ago, half an hour ago. So look, I feel we've got more important things to talk about. But as a minor story, which has a big impact, I think this is very important. So we wake up this morning, Timo Werner is on the verge of joining Spurs on a 6-month loan deal. So it's good enough for Ange and it's good enough for Spurs, but it wasn't good enough for some of you. This is what I was saying. I don't think Timo Werner is the answer, but he's a solution for 6 months. And I thought Werner was the best option. And I know he was Man United's number 1. And they've missed out because they snooze and they lose and they're incompetent. We're so slow. We're crap at transfers, and we still are. Ineos are not involved in transfers at the moment. This is still the John Murta Glazer show, and we've missed out. And I feel that, you know, there will be people in the chat going, good, I'm glad we've missed out on him. But it's a little bit like being starving and somebody offering you a burger and going, no, I don't want it. Like, beggars can't be choosers. There is no better option than Werner. You're now going to move down the list, and God knows what that is. It could still be Malen. Malen, I don't think is as good as Werner, but Malen might be a next best option. Choupo-Moting could come back on. Guirassi's money. If you go for Guirassy, you're spending money, which I think is a big mistake. We shouldn't be buying anybody in January. We should be doing a loan deal, which is short-termism. But look, there was a lot of people saying, good, I don't want Timo Werner. And I was like, but you don't understand. We're not buying Timo Werner to be our starting striker for the next 5 years. We're getting him on loan to help us out until the summer. And if it works out, maybe he gets a long-term deal. And if he doesn't, he goes back to Leipzig. He's now going to Spurs. Spurs are better than us. Ange is having a great season. So you're telling me that I and some of you were wrong for saying that Werner's probably the best of a bad bunch and you didn't want him, but now he's going to Ange. So you're going to call Ange and Spurs an idiot who are having a much better season than us. It was a good deal and United should have done it, but we're too slow. And now he's going to go to Spurs. And this reminds me of last January where João Felix went to Chelsea and Gakpo went to Liverpool. And you end up with Weghorst. I'm not saying that Werner was the answer, but we're going to move down the list now. So if Werner wasn't good enough, you can guarantee that as we move down the list, they're going to get worse and worse. So it's not surprising. It's not the end of the world, but it's just another indication of just how crap we are at doing business. Now, Werner may not have fancied it. He might not have wanted to come to Man United. He might have preferred Spurs. The prospect of getting more game time, I don't know. But look, for me, it was Werner or nothing, or it was Werner or Choupo-Moting. You know, I was never thinking it's Werner or Osimhen because there's only one horse in the race. I was never thinking it's Werner or Tony because I'd rather have Tony. But we're not in those conversations. We're not looking at Osimhen. We're not looking at Tony. We're not looking at anybody significant in the January transfer window. We're looking at a cheap loan deal to help us out. And I think Werner was the best one. And he's now going to go to a rival who are, you know, above us in the league. So, you know, do you think we could go back for Weghorst? Well, I hope not. Mark Rogerson, thank you very much for your super chat. Paul says, the problem is these players and some staff have been on a good thing for too long and now they realise they're getting found out and hard work is coming, says Paul. Guirassy costs 15 million. But the problem with Guirassy, Wolf, is that he's a flash-in-the-pan striker who's had one good season, well, one half of a good season, and you pay money for him and you're stuck with him for 4 years. You take Werner, you can give him back after 4 months. Buying Guirassy, we shouldn't be buying anybody in January. The only player we should buy in January is Todibo because we wanted him in the summer and he plays for Nice. We should not be buying in January. We haven't got the director of football. We haven't got the CEO. No permanent deals should be done in January under John Murtagh. We need a proper review of that squad, which won't be ready for January. So you take someone in on loan. That's what you do. Guirassy would be 15 million. Oh, it's that cheap. Yeah, but you're stuck with him for 3 or 4 years. And then when you want another striker in the summer, they'll go, well, you've got Guirassy and got Højlund. So, you know, it's not a good idea to spend money on people in January, in my opinion. I agree with Ikpo. I actually think that Werner will do good at Spurs, and I think he would have done good at United. And I think that, you know, well, I know that United wanted him, but we're not good enough to go and get him. So, you know, that's basically what's happened. Ryan says, should have got Werner. Spurs on the verge of signing 2 players already, which will definitely improve them. We never do that in January. And look, the bigger picture for me is, and I don't know whether I've mentioned it on here, I've certainly mentioned it on That's Football, is the January transfer window was always going to be, and I was talking about it in November, the January transfer window was always going to be about who's brave and who's weak. And what I meant by that is, you look at Aston Villa, you look at Spurs, you look at Liverpool, you look at Arsenal, Brighton, Newcastle, Manchester United, Chelsea. The January transfer window has a history of being symbolic. It has a history of being, you know, successful. Van Dijk, Southampton to Liverpool, Bruno to Manchester United. That helped us that season. So you can do something in January that can really, really help your season. But I think this January transfer window is bigger than ever because we've had a 20% increase in injuries in the Premier League compared to last year. So that means that, you know, unless you're very, very lucky, you're getting a lot more injuries. And it's a very competitive Premier League season. So you put those two things together. Very, very competitive season, more injuries. What do you do with the January window? Oh, ignore it. We like to do it in the summer. No. You use it. You go, if I can get 2 or 3 players in January, the chances of me finishing in the top 4 have just increased massively. So doing business in January will help where you finish in May. It goes hand in hand with the increase in injuries and the increase in competition. Spurs are looking at a centre-back from Genoa. They're now going to get a striker in on loan, and they might do something else. That's 2 or 3 players added to the Spurs squad that's already there. That's a massive help for them. And they're not in Europe. So, yeah, I think that this is a problem that United have had for years. We ignore, we actually have a director of football that has said on at least 2 occasions in 2 separate seasons, we don't like the January transfer window, we like to do it in the summer. That's how bad Man United are run. Would you consider Enrique or Flick as options as football lover? What, we're back talking about the manager again. Mate, I think we've got more significant things to worry about than the manager at the moment. The manager's not, you know, I'll look at that in the summer. I don't really like talking about a replacement for a manager that I don't really want to sack. I know some of you do, but I'm not really at that stage. So I don't really want to start going, oh yeah, I'd do this, I'd do that. I've said Ancelotti would be my choice, but it's unrealistic. No United player down tools when Sir Alex Ferguson retired, says Phil81. And James Cave says, morning, Mark. Any significant funds should be going towards the summer. We need quantity and quality guided by the knowledge of a proper director of football. I completely agree, James, and that's why you should be looking at loan deals like Timo Werner in January to help the squad out. Philip says we should have got Werner, even if it was meant as having a backup to Rasmus. I completely agree. I still think we can do something, but I know for a fact that Werner was the #1 option, and now you're moving down the list. I'd say the next best thing is Malen from Dortmund. Some people might have preferred Malen anyway, but if that doesn't happen, then I don't really know where we're going after that. I really don't know. It's hard to predict where we'd go actually after that. But look, that Werner thing has happened very, very quickly, literally in the space of a few hours, really, and it just shows you how quick teams can work. And Fabrizio has literally just said that Timo Werner has accepted Spurs' proposal as he wants to go to the Premier League. He's keen to work with Ange Postecoglou. Postecoglou has approved the deal. Negotiations ongoing today, plus potential option to buy clause. And, you know, honestly, why do I think Man United haven't done this deal? Money. I think it will be money. There's not a lot of money at Man United. When we're trying to sell Varane, who's our best centre-back, to raise money, we ain't got any money. We haven't got any money. And people saying, what about 12 million for Dybala? Why do you think we've got 12 million quid? I mean, I'm being serious. Why do you think Man United have got 12 million pounds? What makes you think we've got 12 million pounds to spend? I don't think we've got it. I said last week, I think we might have 20. I actually don't think we've got anything. Really, I think we've got enough to do a loan deal like Weghorst, and unless we sell somebody, and yeah, I don't think there's a lot of money. I really, really don't. Rich says, what about Benzema? I love Benzema. I saw this last night. I love Benzema. Would I take him at Man United? No, I don't see the point. He would come into this football club and go exactly what Ronaldo and Casemiro and Varane did, and go, what a fucking mess. And he'd get no service. And he'd be very expensive. I don't see, you know, the romantic in me would love to see Benzema at the club like we did with Henrik Larsson for a few months, but I don't see that. And I don't, you know, there's short-termism. At least with Werner, it's short-termism, but it might turn into something special. You know, he might not work at Spurs, but if he did work at Spurs, they might have a real bargain there. If you bring in Benzema, he's never going to be a long-term solution, is he? Is it concerning this football club is unable to get their first options when their jobs are at risk? Jay, we're just absolutely crap at what we do. And look, I'll be honest with you, Werner's agent might have said, I want 5 million. And then Spurs have said, and then for Spurs, he'll do it for 1 million. Like, that does happen. And it is important to say that what we get offered compared to what Spurs have been offered, and we might know that, is ridiculous. Like, Werner might want double the wages at Man United. His agent might want double the fee. That happens a lot. That happens a hell of a lot. And we have missed out on deals because of that. Because they see us coming. Spurs walk down the road. They're in a suit. They look like they know what they're doing. Man United walk down the road. They've got a clown wig on and they're naked and they look like a prat. And they see us coming. We do get our pants pulled down a lot because they see us coming and they know we're absolutely desperate and shit at what we do. So, sometimes you don't do a deal. I mean, to be honest with you, the Werner deal might not have been done because they wanted stupid money because it's Man United. That reflects on everything. That reflects on everything. Eric told the truth about not buying anyone. Well, there was an interesting thing from Ben Jacobs, which I read last night, which was apparently Villarreal are looking at Pelestri on loan, by the way. But where did it come in from? Ben Jacobs said that Man United are not anticipating a busy January transfer window and are currently focused on outgoings, although a new forward could be signed if sufficient funds are raised. So Werner's going to Spurs now. We've not raised any money yet. We haven't got any money, have we? We've got to raise money. So the reason that Werner's going to Spurs is that deal's there to be done on the 6th of January. Snooze, you lose. Man United haven't done any business yet. We've not done anything, so we haven't got any money. Simple as that. Anyway, look, thanks everyone for watching. If you're interested, I'm on That's Football at 12:30 today. I'm doing Sunderland against Newcastle. It's a 1:45 kickoff in the FA Cup. Looking forward to that. Massive game. And also, we've got an 8 o'clock show for you tonight. Don't always do a Saturday night 8 o'clock, but we've got a live 8 o'clock show with yours truly tonight. So I look forward to that. And I really enjoyed the show this morning. You're absolute legends. Welcome to our new members. Thank you very much for joining the club and getting your badge in. If you want to get one of these, by the way, we sell them on the United Stand Shopify. Great show. Not necessarily great stories, but real talk. That's what it's all about. And I will see you at 12:30 for a watch along on That's Football. Speak to you in a bit.